This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. Happy Thanksgiving. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my guy, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Fun times. We're going to preview the Lions and the Packers. Hopefully the Lions get their 9th win of the season. Recapping a crazy game against the Bears. Many maybe thought it was going to end up being the trap game that many feared, but the Lions held on. They were able to really, in the end, they were able to fight back, get back quickly, and then when they needed the defensive play, it finally happened. So we're going to recap that wildness. We're going to recap everything going on with Michigan. It's the big game. It's the big week. I'm curious to see how confident Adam is regarding the Michigan Wolverines in probably the biggest college football game in the Big Ten in a long, long time without Jim Harbaugh on the sidelines. It's crazy to think about a game of that magnitude. And we'll start there. When you look at it, cuz, and you see how this entire sign stealing scandal played out, when you realize, okay, at first everybody at Michigan was like, lone wolf, this one crazy guy did it all by himself. And then you look at it, and then as the national media was drip, sprinkling out information little by little to kind of dispute the crazy fans that were just trying to defend anything that was in regards to Michigan playing the ultimate victim. And then you realize last week, okay, Michigan was not going to put Jim Harbaugh on the stand to testify against a lawyer who would have had some theatrics, maybe tried to make a name for himself, trying to, put Jim Harbaugh in a tough spot. Michigan caved. They accepted the suspension. And then you recognize, too, that linebackers coach was not going to be, was reportedly telling students not to, telling some guys on the football team not to cooperate with investigations. So obviously this has a lot more depth and layers than just a lone wolf that was crazy. And I think Michigan obviously did the right thing to settle it. Look, Jim Harbaugh, a lot of people are saying 85% of the work is done during the week, and coaching it just involves a couple decisions here and there. And we'll see what that means, because Jim Harbaugh will not be on the sideline for the biggest game of the year. But when you look at it, when it's all said and done, do you think, let's start here, cuz, do you think Michigan was correct to decide that, hey, we're just going to allow Jim Harbaugh to accept the suspension, let him not coach? Obviously, beating Penn State, beating Maryland, letting Sharon Moore handle things, I think it was the right thing to do, but it does kind of lend itself, as we see and peel the layers back a little bit, it feels like this is just the beginning of the information that's going to be revealed about Michigan.
Yeah, I think it was a smart move to just kind of accept the punishment and keep it moving. To me, this sounds like it has multiple layers, and this is going to get really, really ugly before it gets much better for Michigan. Honestly, this season has the feeling of the last hurrah. It's, to me, and from what I'm hearing, and there's different reports and different people are speculating about different things, it sounds like this will be the last year for Jim Harbaugh as the head coach of Michigan. It sounds like there's going to be a heavy penalty to pay for the University of Michigan and specifically the football team. So, like you said, a lot of different things, a lot of different moving parts. I think at this point in time, if you are a Michigan fan and you still believe that Jim Harbaugh had no knowledge of any of this, I think you have your head buried in the sand. I'm not saying that Jim Harbaugh was the brain trust behind it. I'm not saying that Jim Harbaugh was necessarily a motivating factor or a key guy involved in it. But what I'm telling you is that Jim Harbaugh, as the head coach of the Michigan football program, knew about this, and it was done underneath his guise, and it was done with him having the ability to stop this. And at no certain point did he stop this. Now, it sounds like there's a booster involved. It sounds like there were other either position coaches or coordinators involved. And all of this happened with Jim Harbaugh at the helm. And the more and more stuff comes out, there's now innuendo and speculation that there was possibly point shaving involved, or that betting and gambling had a part to do with this. It's going to be really, really interesting to see what the final verdict from the NCAA is. And it's going to be really interesting to see what the University of Michigan does. I don't believe Harbaugh will have the ability to coach next season. And honestly, if you look at what the information was that was passed along and how it was utilized, I don't know if Jesse Minter, I really like Jesse Minter. I think he's a really good defensive coordinator. I don't think Jesse Minter comes back next year. I wouldn't be surprised if Sharon Moore came back next year. I feel like at a certain point, this entire football staff is going to get gutted, because you're going to have to wipe the slate clean, because so many people, it seems like, and it feels like to me, had intimate knowledge of what was going on and all stood to benefit from it. It is getting messier and messier as the weeks kind of move on. I think it was the right move at the right time to take the punishment. And honestly, I feel like the Big Ten is just kind of hoping Ohio State takes care of business for them so they don't have to worry about it. I think the college football playoff is thinking the same exact thing. I think if Michigan is able to win this game against Ohio State, and you're looking at college football playoff rankings, Michigan will probably move up to number 2. I see the same exact thing happening with Ohio State that happened last year. They get moved to number 4, and Washington or Oregon will probably take that. Third spot. And then the hope is that Washington or Oregon will take care of the University of Michigan. I really feel like the Big Ten tried to play both sides of the aisle, but was trying to keep trump cards in its back pocket, to where if Michigan was able to weather this storm, was able to get through this gauntlet, and they were able to go undefeated with this season, that in the end, somebody else would end up doing the heavy lifting for them. Because I don't know what they're going to do with Jim Harbaugh if they're able to get to the playoff. I don't know if Jim Harbaugh is going to be allowed to coach. Like, the Big Ten has come out and said, look, for the Big Ten season, you're suspended. And look, we've got a Big Ten championship game, and then after that, you've got the college football playoff. And then it's like, I don't know what happens with Jim Harbaugh after that. And I think you can see with the way these games have kind of unfolded recently, the sign stealing played a part. And again, if you're not willing to accept that, you're just burying your head in the sand. The sign stealing played a part. Do I think Michigan has really good athletes and overall is a better football team than Penn State? Yes. Do I think they're heads and tails a better football team than Maryland? Yes. Maryland gave you a scare last week. So now going into the biggest game of the year against your most hated rival, I don't know how this plays out. And I think Jim Harbaugh not being on the sideline, I think that has a bit of a part to do with it as well. I know you said that head coaching only accounts for a player or two here or there, right? It's only making the decision here or there. It's only about 15% of the entire pie. But I think you can see as far as the points getting scored. Jim Harbaugh has been suspended for 5 games this year. Like, that just sounds gross to say, but he has missed 5 games this year. And this team looks different when he's not on the sideline for those 5 games. So I think this was a pretty harsh penalty by the Big Ten. It was something that needed to be done. The sign stealing is pretty evident that it plays a part in these games. And now it remains to be an interesting, I guess, scenario, an interesting saga will play out on Saturday when Michigan takes on Ohio State at the Big House. I mean, this is nuts. Next season, and from different stuff that you've read and different stuff that you have seen, do you believe that any parts of this coaching staff, the head coach, the DC, or the OC, are back next year? Because I just can't see, if what is coming out is true, and the things that I am hearing are true, I don't believe Jim Harbaugh will be allowed to coach the 2024 season. I believe Michigan will be forced to move on from him. I don't know if Sharon Moore, if there was one of these three guys that were going to be allowed to come back next year and be able to coach, it would probably be Sharon Moore. I think Jesse Minter, out of everybody, probably benefited the most from the sign stealing scandal. I think when it's all said and done, he will have a heavy tax to pay. That being said, he'll probably just go to Baltimore and he'll be a coach on Baltimore's team and help them destroy the Lions at some point. But do you see any way that any one of those guys are able to come back?
Yeah, it's tough. And it kind of has the feel, if you look at it, if you're Jim Harbaugh, because most people you think have some level of self-awareness. He's looking at this year as the year, okay, at the very worst, if we peak out and we play our best with what we got with Roman Wilson, you got a top-end running back, J.J. McCarthy, who by all accounts is probably going to end up being one of the best quarterbacks that Jim Harbaugh has ever worked with, probably encapsulates everything that he wants in a quarterback, sees a lot of himself in J.J. McCarthy. Your Jim Harbaugh, I think he pushed it all in, and he recognized, okay, I could be suspended and still win. That's kind of how he looked at the landscape of college football, and he pushed it all in to say this is the year. Now, with that said, I don't think when I look at Michigan in its totality, it's going to be a tough contest against Ohio State. I think this football team's its ceiling is to get to the final two, get to the national title game in the playoff, and then lose. I don't think when I see this football team that you have enough on the offensive line. I don't think that if J.J. McCarthy, in regards to the passing offense, I don't think it's as deep and as expansive as some of the stuff you see in the SEC. I think a team like Georgia, I think a team like that probably has a great opportunity to do some things. And I see this Michigan team, and I say for Jim Harbaugh, I think he knew. His time was up. He realized, okay, my relationships with the university, Ward Manual, the 7 years, he realized, okay, probably it encapsulated the amount of time, probably too, just for him, that the grind of doing everything probably was enough. So I think he pushed it all in this year and said, this is the year I have a chance to win it all. He's got a chance. If you get to the final game, you have a chance. And he's not going to care if Michigan wins it, that it could be revoked or it could be that stuff won't happen. It'll just be like it was with the Fab Five. People still remember everything that went on. People still remember how everything shook out. The penalties and shit like that is all basically on paper, and nobody cares about that. If they create the memory of winning it all, then for Jim Harbaugh, it'll be worth it. And in the end, the question that Michigan fans have to wrestle with is, did you trade integrity for winning? And for me, I don't care. I mean, I think it's just kind of a given. College football seedy. You got to do things. In the past, it was more under the table. It was more, stellar handshakes and giving the brothers of the players and the moms houses and cars and shit like that. And it was ultra sneaky. And, it was kind of like, in that scene in Scarface, if you're a fan, when everybody kind of reveals to everybody that, hey, you guys are drug dealers. And everybody kind of looks like, oh, shit, you guys are blowing up our spot. But in the end, Michigan traded their integrity, their willingness to be the leaders and best for wins in athletics. And it's just like everybody else, but what I think that some people will say is the integrity of the university was worth more than doing this. But I think in the real world, more people say, screw it, we don't care. Jim Harbaugh pushed it all in. And he took the ultimate gamble, knowing that I don't think he cares if he gets suspended. I think that the suspension's meaningless. I think he's going to move on. I think his time is up. I think he feels like he did everything he could for Michigan. And could he weather a suspension and come back? I don't think he wants to do that. Next year, you look at that schedule, Texas, you got Oregon and the big dogs coming in. It's going to be a nightmare. It got harder to be a coach in the Big Ten. You go out with your head held high. Everyone loves you. You played the victim. You did the PR thing. You walk away, and time will be his best friend. I don't think he cares, cuz. I think he's gone willingly, and I think that was the plan all along.
Yeah, I think a lot of what you said is correct. I think he mortgaged everything, and he risked everything for this season. And look, I don't know if they get it done. I'll be honest with you. You have to win this game on Saturday. This is the biggest game of the year. Your schedule was incredibly soft this year. It got hard late, and you've basically been surrounded by a shitstorm regarding the sign stealing scandal, and you've weathered most of it. But now you're heading into this game with a guy who doesn't like you at all, doesn't care for anything about you in Ryan Day, and is looking for revenge and retribution because, let's be honest, Michigan whipping his ass the last 2 years the way that they did, there were people in Ohio State calling for his head. His seat got incredibly hot because of what you did. And whether your sign stealing impacted it or not, or whether you believe that or you don't, his seat got incredibly hot. This man was on the verge of losing his job. And honestly, if Michigan beats them this year, he might be out of a job. So there's a lot on the line for Ohio State. There's a lot on the line for Ryan Day. And when you look at this Michigan team and you look at the way that they have performed the last 2 weeks with everything going on around them, you look at what they've done on the field. I have major concerns going into this game. I don't know if you get the job done. I don't know if you have the ability to get the job done. Your offensive line looks completely different. Your offensive line looks like it has cinder blocks around its feet, and JJ's back there just trying to hold on. And then you look at what JJ's doing. He is. It looks like he's regressed. It looks like he's gone back to that guy who was the quarterback a year ago, the guy who was trying to force the ball, the guy who wasn't letting plays develop, the guy who was throwing into double and triple coverage and trying to use his arm strength to squeeze it into a Kleenex box. Doesn't look like the guy who's making the right play. Doesn't look like the guy who's making the right read. Doesn't look like the guy who is willing to extend the drive and try to open something up, or maybe use some play action passing and maybe get moving and throwing the ball downfield. Doesn't look like that at all. Then you look at what's going on with the run game. Run game has been decent. Yeah. You won the Penn State game because you were able to run it down their throat. But does this run game look like it looked last year? Does this run game intimidate you? It doesn't. Donovan Edwards has really been a non-factor for most of the season. Blake Corum is out there doing what he can do. But again, it comes back to the offensive line. If the offensive line was better, Blake Corum would look better. And then as far as your receivers go, I don't know if the Michigan coaching staff actually trusts the guys out wide. You've got good receivers. You've got really good tight ends. I just don't know if there's enough creativity in that playbook to really get these guys open for JJ. And look, going back to JJ, this has been a bit of a problem for the majority of the year. JJ McCarthy tends to underthrow or throw behind his wide receivers. JJ McCarthy tends to put his receivers in bad spots where they can get lit up. JJ McCarthy does not have a habit of leading his wide receivers. There are times where the play is wide open, and if he just threw the ball in front of the guy, let the wide receiver run onto the ball or have his hands in front of him, he's going to catch it, and he's going to pick up anywhere from 5, 10, 15, 20. He's going to go to the house if you just put the ball in the right place. He has a bad habit of throwing behind his wide receivers or throwing into really bad coverage that gets his wide receivers hurt. You've seen it last week. Does he do the same thing? You got to remember, Ohio State is a lot different animal than what you've seen with Penn State and what you've seen with Maryland. Their athletes are better. They are faster. They, again, hate you. So they're looking to rip your head off. And then you flip it to the defensive side of the ball. Look, Ohio State, I think, is the upgraded version of Penn State. A lot of the same things we said about Penn State, I think you can say about Ohio State. I don't think that they have a very good quarterback. Yeah, they have arguably the best player in college football in Marvin Harrison Jr., but unless you can get him the ball or they come up with creative ways to get him the ball, I don't know how much of a factor he's going to be. I think if he gets the ball in his hands, it could go to the house at any point. He is that good. He is that good. Their run game has gotten better. TreVeyon Henderson has gotten healthy, and he looks to be a little bit more comfortable. So the run game is going to be better. But as far as the guy who's under center, I don't think he's very good. So you look at Michigan's defense. Can your defensive front get home and make him feel pressure? Can your cornerbacks hold up? And what are you going to do to try to stop a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr.? And if you stop him, you have to worry about everybody else because they are deep at wide receiver. This program pumps out wide receivers like it's crazy. If you go to your fantasy lineup right now, you type in like top 20 wide receivers, I bet you find 3, maybe 4 guys that are Ohio State products. That's how good the wide receiving core is. And it's from recent drafts, not like 5 drafts ago, like recent drafts, recent NFL drafts. These guys populate the NFL and are very, very good. So I have big concerns going into this game. And then, again, you factor in Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh not being there, there's obviously a different tenor. There's a different mindset. The team doesn't score as much. The team does not play as good of defense when Jim Harbaugh is not there. And maybe some of it has to do with the sign stealing. Maybe it is just Sharon Moore kind of feeling his way through being a head coach. I don't know what it is. I don't know. There are a lot of question marks going into this game for Michigan. And if you're a Michigan fan, I feel like you should be concerned. You should not be beating your chest and not feeling like you've got this game locked up because this is going to be a really tough game. This is going to be a hard game. If you win this game, I feel like you are incredibly lucky. If you win this game, if this was a game that was played 10 times, I don't know how many times you win it. I really don't. I'm very nervous headed into this game. And it's for a lot of the things that have been going on this season. It is for a lot of the things that I've seen over the last 2 weeks. There is just so much here in this one game that can be parsed through and digested, and you still have more to get through. It is a very nerve-wracking game for me this year. That being said, I'll be taking it in at a bar, and if I tweet, they're probably going to be drunk tweets, so please excuse me. And, John, if they are losing, please do not tweet me with some of your crazy BS where you like to rub stuff in. I don't need it. I'll be in my own little pit of misery.
Well, you have a reprieve at least. I'll be in the press box. They did let me in. I am one of the esteemed media members that will be watching the game. And I won't do that, but I will let you know your fantasy team blows this year. And if it really is bad if you're going to lose to me in fantasy. That's really bad.
I have no idea what happened last week. I had a pretty rough go in all my leagues. With like star players dying, like my number one running backs. I had Nick Chubb, and he died. And then my other leagues, I had Austin Eckler, and he was dead for half the season. So it's been like a late season push, and I don't know what the hell happened last week. Everybody just took a nap and fell asleep, and nobody did anything for me. So me losing to you might have sealed my fate for the entire season. I think in my division, I was in first place. And it was only by like a slim margin of points. And then I ended up losing to you. And now I think I'm in like third place in my division. And I might not even make the playoffs.
So sad. Too bad. But I'll look at it like this. For Michigan fans, I always look at it in big games. The talent is even across the board. But I think that J.J. McCarthy is better than McCord. Just real briefly to your point about wide receivers. Receivers they let go are the caliber of Jamison Williams with blazing speed. That's how good they are. They're just like, Jamison, we don't need you. You got Garrett Wilson waiting in the wings. So it is crazy to think about when you look at it. But I do think Michigan wins it in the end. It's going to be uber competitive. But I do think that the advantage of playing in Ann Arbor is massive. I think that Blake Corum in no way, shape, or form is going to disappoint. I think that you don't even need Donovan Edwards. You just need him to be kind of the guy that can just catch it a little bit out of the backfield, maybe get a couple yards here and there after the catch. But I think it's Roman Wilson, it's Blake Corum, it's using the athleticism of J.J. McCarthy, it's those tight ends that are spectacular that I think can extend drives, and I think it's ball control. I think you play Michigan, and here's the crazy part. Everybody's looking at Ryan Day as a guy that is kind of similar to James Franklin in that you have one of the most talented wide receivers. Are you going to get stupid and just run the ball and try to prove this quote-unquote toughness that you think you have? I'm not so certain that Ryan Day is going to coach this game the way in which he needs to. Is he going to get creative, or is he going to be stupid like he's been in the past couple games against Michigan and looking at their game plan? I think mano-a-mano, it's going to be close. I can't wait to see it. I think that it's going to be two teams that are going to be hungry. But in the end, I think J.J. McCarthy is better than McCord, and I think that you end up having the opportunity to go right through against Iowa and win the Big Ten and go undefeated, get to the playoff and take your chances there. But I think that a lot of Michigan fans are nervous. It's going to be a fun atmosphere. But I think Michigan has enough when you look at it in regards to what teams do. Run the football, extend the play, score touchdowns. I mean, it might end up being a situation in which a couple turnovers here or there end up being the factor late. But I think Michigan has enough. You just can't. Yeah, I think you obviously game plan to try and deal with Harrison as much as possible. But the way in which you deal with Harrison is you pressure the shit out of McCord. And I think the pressure is going to come. I think that it's going to be an all-out game plan where it's pin your ears back and get after McCord. He could toss a pick six. Look, in the end, biggest players make big plays. And from what I saw, the reason why people say, well, why would you go to Michigan? I've loved scouting Sanistro. I mean, I think that he's undersized for what the
he's awesome.
Yes, he's awesome. But, in terms of his collegiate prowess, he's fun to watch. And he's a guy that grabs your attention based on his ability to recognize plays, his closing speed, his smartness, his obviously a guy that is a game changer. So I want to go see him make plays. I think he could actually make the play late. If Ohio State is driving down 3 in the fourth quarter, I wouldn't be surprised if Sanistro has a nice breakup or does something spectacular. Special players make special plays, and it could seal the deal there in Ann Arbor. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, I'll be on my best behavior. It was funny. I did tell media members, I'm just going to cheer for Ohio State, but I'll do it internally, and I'll do it. Actually, to be honest, Michigan, for me, I like to give Michigan the ultimate pain. So in the end, I would really say my true desire is for Michigan to win, get to the playoff, win a playoff game, be happy, and then get their ass beat by Georgia. I think the ultimate pain to send Jim Harbaugh off getting his ass beat will be unbelievable, because that's the closest taste you get, is right there to taste it in Texas and have everybody talking about you and then get your ass beat and get run out of the gym. That would be spectacular. I think that's a pain that's none too fun to go through. So we'll see what happens. I'm curious to see how it all plays out. But, yeah, I think that everybody realizes, okay, they've come to accept that Michigan did bad. They're no longer willing to accept that it was a lone wolf. So we'll see what happens. All right, cuz, real fast, before we get to the Lions, I got to get your sense because I know you're hearing it. Jonathan Smith or Elko probably going to be the Michigan State coach. I think it's good. It's a safe hire. I think a lot of people like Smith from Oregon State because they feel like he's done a lot with a little. And I think it's better than Elko because I don't think Michigan State wants a defensive coach. I think that Elko would be a better Midwest recruiter, but maybe there's a little bit higher upside with Jonathan Smith. So while it's not going to make me change my pants, I can at least sit there at the table and go, okay, it's respectable. Oregon State, that's the level of what you're going to get. I'm okay with that.
I think Elko would probably be the better hire. And look, neither one of these guys really scare me. I think what really scares me is I think Michigan's going to be in a really tough spot next year. But I think Elko would probably be the better hire just because this is a guy who, like you said, really good in the Midwest, has connections, has ties, and has been able to do things with a program like Duke. On top of that, he's been a guy who's been at Notre Dame, has been a guy who's kind of knows the lay of the land. Like he gets it. And to be able to do what he's done at Duke and have really good recruiting classes, because that's really where a lot of these games are won and lost, right? You can be an 8-9 win team just based upon you having some good recruits. You had some good coaching in there, you can get things done. I think if he is the hire, he has to bring somebody in who has a really good mind for offense. He's a defensive coach. I think Michigan State needs to dial up that offense a little bit. The way college football has gone, you need good offenses. You need to be able to win at least 1 or 2 games every year. That's a freaking shootout that you can go into it and you can hang 45 on somebody. So I think if he is the hire, he needs to bring somebody in who's going to be able to be creative offensively. But I think he would be the better hire, honestly.
Got it. We'll see how it plays out. It might happen. Many people are thinking maybe next week at the home Michigan State game, you announce the coach and everything like that. So we'll see how it plays out. Now, turning our attention to the Lions, I thought that was a fun, wild game against the Bears. Had all the makings of a trap game, but in the end, once they got their ass in gear down 26-14 with less than 5 minutes left, once they threw the deep shot to Jameson, I felt like in no way, shape, or form was the Bears going to end up closing the game. I thought that the Bears had a great game plan. I thought that they really tried to utilize their biggest strength, which was Justin Fields. They realized, okay, the Lions, for whatever reason, and just like a lot of teams, they just can't, that if you can utilize your offensive line, you can find lanes. Offenses are great because creative offenses can find lanes because of the way blocking schemes happen, the way in which you can send receivers out, the way in which basically defensive backs are so scared to touch anybody that you can open up and create lanes by taking advantage of a team's aggressiveness. And when I really look at it, it's basically, and I think everybody now that watches football at that level can see that the masterminds of offense are like one beat ahead of the masterminds on defense. And it's no knock on Aaron Glenn, no knock on Robert Saleh. It's the idea that when you have the opportunity to create lanes and scheme guys open, and based on the rules, you can't breathe on a quarterback, you can't do anything to try and stop. You hit somebody in a way, I mean, these defensive backs got to find an exact way to pinpoint where they launch into a guy, that the opportunities for big lanes to be created. I saw the Bears scheme up a blocking scheme with their offensive line that allowed Justin Fields to run for 10 yards at a time. And there was nothing the Lions could do, because if they were literally, if the Lions were to send two guys, then you got DJ Moore scampering free. Then you got an opportunity to be elusive, and you got the options to evade that. So it was just tough. And I think that's, guys, get ready. When Dan Campbell, I think he's the best in that he tells you, when he says change your diapers, it means that's how playoff games are going to probably look. You're not going to walk into a playoff game and blow out a team. You're going to play a safer style, hopefully to make the play late. Hopefully you have a nice matchup against a team that you're just better than. But I think what's going to happen is the Lions are going to bank on their experience that, yes, bend all the way over in the first three quarters, and then in the fourth quarter when it's time to make the plays, they're banking on the guys to step it up, like Aiden Hutchinson, who just really key play there to get that safety. Just had that one sack, but it was impactful. And so that's the way I look at it. It's an ugly win, but I think it's a good thing because it really shows you that, bottom line, when it's time to turn on the lights, the Lions have the capability at certain times to play at a very, very high level.
Yeah, look, I think this is the benefit of having a running quarterback, is what you got to see on Sunday. You can design different plays for Justin Fields, and he can take advantage of it. That being said, this was an ugly game. This was a sloppy game for the Lions. Whether it was the penalties that you were talking about for the secondary, whether it was Jared Goff throwing to the wrong color jersey, whether it was just the team not being able to execute the way that they have been executing, or it could just be, like you said, it was a trap game. You came off a monster high where you went on the road and you played the Chargers and you beat the Chargers, and then you're looking forward to Thanksgiving where you're looking to pop Green Bay again. And this is just the game that kind of is in the middle, gets kind of caught in the wash. All that being said, I feel like this game was very, very important for this team. I feel like these types of wins are important for teams. These types of wins help you kind of reset and recenter. You realize that you can't look past anybody, and you can't take anything for granted. You have to come prepared every single week. And I think what you've seen was a team that played like absolute dog shit for 55 minutes of the game. In the final 4.5 minutes of the game, they turned it on and they took over this game, and they showed you how good they could be. And I think that's important for a mentality standpoint for the team, for offense and defense, knowing that you have to be engaged like that for the entire time that the game is going on. And you can't take those plays off. And then conversely, you got the win. And that is what is most important, because you look at the standings. This is the team that has, I believe, the second best record in all of the NFL right now. If the Kansas City Chiefs could have helped us out a little bit, that would have been freaking great, but they did not on Monday night. But this team is has the second best record in the NFL. Their schedule is getting a little bit lighter, which is good and helps them out. When the season's all said and done, nobody really asks you how many you beat the other team by. They ask you how many wins you had. This isn't college football. It's all about how many wins you have. And this counts as another one in the win column for the team. Also, I think there's a lot of learning and growing that can be done from this. I think you can look at your defense like Aiden. Hey, good job. Way to get to the quarterback. Way to go for the strip sack, and way to kind of force the defender into the end zone to basically seal the victory for this team. You can look at that and you say, look, this is what you did well. These are things that you have to do more of. Watching that game, I felt like Aiden Hutchinson, Jack Campbell, and a couple of other guys overran their coverage. They played outside of themselves. And this is the one thing that is always talked about with playing against a guy like Justin Fields, playing against that mobile quarterback. You basically have to stay in your lane. Everybody has to be on their job. You can't try to do too much. You can't over pursue. You over pursue, you put the guy behind you in a bad spot. And all of a sudden you can't make a tackle. And next thing you know, Justin Fields is running for 10 yards. Or he's finding a guy open in the middle. So you can't do that. So I think this is a very good learning experience. And then when you look at offensive, I mean, look, JMO got involved. That's nice. I think Jared Goff showed you he's a mentally tough quarterback. He is a guy who, when the chips are down, he's fold up like a card table. That guy threw some ugly picks in this game. They were just disgusting. And let me tell you, I know, because he was my fantasy quarterback. He helped you get a win this week. You should be excited. But he did not have his best game. But when the lights were the brightest and it was crunch time and it was a pressure moment, he showed you that he could get the job done. He showed you that when it's game-winning time, let's go. I was watching I think it was Inside the NFL. It was on whatever's on CW. It basically Ryan Clark and a bunch of other guys talking. And they showed some clips from that game. And I think it's really, really cool what you've got with Dan Campbell. And I think it's a little bit underappreciated sometimes. Dan Campbell is a guy who all the players respect. I don't know if they look up to him, but they sure as hell respect this guy. And he knows what he's doing. This guy has matured into a good football coach. And there was a point where they got the ball back. Is again 4 minutes 30 seconds left, 4 minutes 25 seconds, whatever it was. It was right before they went on that scoring drive. He walks over to Jared Goff and he's like, 4 downs. He's like, we're going 4 downs all the time. So he's telling his quarterback, like, it doesn't matter what happens out there. We're going for it always on 4th down. And I think as a quarterback, that's really good to know. That's really good to know. Jared Goff even double checked with him. He's like, 4? He's like, yeah, 4 down. He's like, no matter what, we're going. I think that's awesome because it allows you to go out there and be able to have that 1st down that doesn't really amount for anything. If you get sacked for 2nd down, now you come back 3rd down, you gotta chew into whatever that yardage is. You gotta pick some of that up, but you can get that in 4th down. And this team is very creative with their 4th down play calling. So I think it gives you the mindset of the head coach, and he embodies his players to go out there and do what they do best. And I think it's fantastic. Again, I think this was a very important win. I think it was an ugly win, but I think overall this will bode well for this football team going forward. All that being said, do you have any concerns with what you've seen out of Jared Goff in this game? Because it looks like there might be a bit of a blueprint out there for the rest of the league. And it involves taking away some of that run game and putting the ball in Jared Goff's hands. Jared Goff, again, struggled through large parts of this game, but again, was able to turn it on late. Any concerns with Goff?
Yeah, it's been an uptick. He's now thrown officially more interceptions this year through the first 10 games than he did all last year. So that's not good, and it's obviously something that is concerning. The other big concern with the Lions is, for whatever reason, and I asked Dan Campbell on Tuesday, their play in the 3rd quarter is just drastically different than it is for the rest of the 3. It's just statistically different, and they got to make sure that they figure that out. They have time. Jared Goff, look, the first one to Sam Laporta is not his fault. Laporta's running a route, runs into the Bears defender, but the other 2 were terrible. The one to Edmonds was god-awful. And that's where it's tough in that here's where you got to be a little bit nervous if you're a Lions fan. Jared Goff breathes throwing the ball in the middle. He loves throwing the ball in the middle of the football field because that plays to his strength. when you got to throw the ball to the sideline. It showcases the fact that he doesn't have the strongest arm, and it's just a much difficult throw. And you've seen, obviously, some pick sixes, and his football doesn't get there with the same zip to the outside route as it does over the middle. And that's why you see a lot of slants, you see a lot of underneath stuff, a lot of screens, and a lot of handoffs, is that it plays to the strength of Jared Goff. And that's why having that explosive weapon like Jameson Williams helps out, because it puts a little bit of confusion in the defense. And Jared Goff really is a master at the 2-minute. Boom, 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 because defenses can't respond that fast. He understands exactly where his guys need to be, and that's where his preciseness comes out. Am I concerned? Yeah, but am I more confident that if he does make a mistake, that the Lions have a chance to get over it? Yeah. And in years past, look, it was great. My mindset was watching that game, just knowing that the Lions were better than the Bears. Once Jameson got that touchdown, I was like, Lions have a chance. They got the momentum, and the Bears are a team like the Lions. Literally flipped the script. In years past, we've watched thousands of games, you and I, where that game ends up being a loss for the Lions. They come back, Bears make the thing. It happened last year against Baltimore. You were leading, and boom, Baltimore moves the football down the field. You had no chance, and Tucker makes a miraculous field goal. This time, with the Lions team that wants to play all 60 minutes, that understands they got more talent that can make plays, it's a different story. Now, here's where you got to be concerned. You can fuck around with the Bears. You can fuck around with the Packers. You can fuck around with the Chargers. Obviously, coaching level is drastically different. You go to the playoffs, and that's why Dan Campbell, remember what he says. He wants his football team playing their best in December, where you're going to play the Cowboys, you're going to play the Vikings to end the year. You fuck around in the postseason, you start running the football back and drop the football and get your ass blown up, Craig Reynolds, you're going to get fucked out. You're going to have a problem where every single play is a lot more critical, every turnover is critical, and I think that they will, at that point, raise their level of play, and Jared Goff won't be that guy. I think the thing you'd be concerned about is a pass rush that gets to him, because the offensive line struggles to stay healthy. If it's Sorsdahl his first time in the postseason, I think you can easily move over interior defensive linemen and try to get pressure. I think what you'd be nervous is not interceptions. It's where Jared Goff, tries to scramble and he gets all clunky and fumbles the football. That's where I'd be the most nervous. But look, in the end, big picture-wise, if the Lions win the division, can just find any way to win that playoff game, it's all gravy. Next year is the money year. You get another draft class. You can spend in free agency. You add the impactful dude. You can start to sacrifice 25, 26 drafts and add 2 or 3 players. You have an opportunity to get 6 impactful players next year. Next year is the year where I would be devastated if they can't at least get out of the NFC. This year, it's tough, man. The Eagles they just got it. They're hungry. They got what it takes. They got everything you would want. And if they get healthy, boy, would it be, would it be crazy if full circle from 95 when Lomas made that guarantee and you go back into Philly? Oh, man, it would be crazy. I was telling Andrea, I was like, dude, I'm just going to say I'm a Phillies reporter going into Philly. Oh, hell no. those people are crazy. Could you imagine Lions beating Philly in the NFC title game in Philly? Woo-hoo-hoo. Full circle, it would be crazy. But I look at it like this. Lions give a lot of people a lot of reason for hope with this season, and it's fun. 8-2. I respect it. It's great. I do have concerns, but the other concern I think that everyone naturally has is the Bears and the Chargers have kind of given a pathway for opposing offenses how to attack this defense, and it's not a lot of teams can execute it, but this Packers game is not an easy thing. I think it's great that Aaron Jones is gone, being that Dillon is an okay runner, but he's not as impactful. I think you can get to Jordan Love. I think you can kind of get right on defense. I think the Bears, though, and the Chargers have shown you can expose the Lions secondary if you got good wide receivers and you got talent and you got a quarterback that can be a little bit elusive. But I think that in the end, that's how football goes, is that the Lions are not going to be the 85 Bears. Damn, Aaron Glenn's like, we aren't the 85 Bears, but we'll make a play when we need to. And we'll see what Bruce Irvin does in a couple weeks if he gets his feet under him. Bohanna's interesting. The dude's a big monster. He's going to get another opportunity against the Packers, and you'll start an opportunity to see what this football team looks like. My concern level with Goff is a 6, naturally as it would be, but there's so much more around him because that in the past, last year, if it was a pick, you'd be like, we're fucked. Now he can throw 3 picks, And the caliber of opponent is not as good this year. Next year is going to be tougher because you're going to play a first-place schedule. But in the end, you're going to have better talent, bottom line. So are you nervous? Are you thinking that the Lions' play is kind of concerning in the sloppiness that's kind of shown up the last couple weeks?
So I think that a lot of it seems like it's correctable, right?
Yes.
Like it seems like a lot of it's a mindset or just mental mistakes. And I think those things can be fixed, and those things are easy to fix. I think my big concern is what happens when a team takes away the run game and you're forced to pass the ball.
J-Mo time, baby.
Well, that's the thing, right? So Amon-Ra St. Brown is a dog. We all know this. If you had another wide receiver similar to Amon-Ra St. Brown, I would feel much more comfortable with this offense. If J-Mo can develop into that in the next 2 weeks, sure, great. Am I counting on that? I'm not. So the run game for this offense is incredibly important. It has to be on time, has to start on schedule, and they've got to be able to pick up those chunk yards. So if they're able to do that, cool. Offense is good. Defensively, still have some concerns because that defensive line and that defensive front doesn't do a great job. Again, if you can limit the Lions' run game and you can limit the Lions' defensive front and the QB pressures, they look incredibly mortal, and they look like you can take them out easily. So I do have concerns about those things. This is why getting a guy like James Houston back, if C.J. Gardner-Johnson can come back, that's important. The offensive line for the Lions playing at a high level to help will this run game and the running backs being able to take advantage, crazy important. And again, going back to J-Mo, his development is important. Yes, he had a touchdown. Yes, he ran a route. It looked good. Yes, he turned the right way. These are all good things. The sad part is this is year 2 for this guy, and it's late in the season, and we're counting these things as checks for him, like check pluses, and we're giving him gold stars for these things. These are all things that should just be natural. I don't want to be a downer about it, but these are all things that should already have been established, and he's just now putting them into action, which is what it is. If he can continue to mature and continue to develop, it adds another weapon for this offense, and it makes them that much more lethal. So if the run game is taken away, you do have the pass game, and the pass game should then help open up the run game. Defensively, you do need somebody else to come in and wreak havoc. I know that they signed Bruce Irving. I don't know how much of a difference that guy will make. I know a lot of people were interested in getting a guy like Shaq Leonard. Shaq Leonard, I think, is cooked. I think he ended up having an injury, and he's just not been the same since his injury. And look, there was talks about him retiring before the season even started. So him getting released by the Colts, I don't know if that plays dividends, and I don't know if he'd even be interested in coming here. I don't even know if he's football anymore. So getting James Houston back, imperative. And his timeline, nobody knows. Same thing with C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Nobody knows what his timeline is. So limiting injuries and getting guys back who are healthy, I think, is probably the most important thing. But going into this game against Green Bay, do you see this defensive front bouncing back, and do you see this run game bouncing back and helping this team get a Thanksgiving victory?
Yeah, the injury reports out for the Packers. They got a bunch of dudes out. Up to 5 or 6 starters going to be gone. I think that Jordan Love is a player that you can get to. You can force mistakes, and you can do some things. You need more pressure. You just got to find more ways to get back into that backfield. I do think the defensive front, especially on Thanksgiving, gives you that juice. It's going to be probably a little bit of a sloppy game. Nobody is as fresh on 4 days rest, not even 4 days rest in these kind of games. It's all mental. But I think that if you can, in the span of the third quarter, wear down the team, I think the Lions have a bunch of young cats. And like you said, the Lions don't need Jameson Williams over the next 2 weeks. They need him over the next 2 months in regards to get better. So he's got time, and I think he'll get there. I think he'll have an opportunity to get behind. I think Ben Johnson has the opportunity to scheme him open and to scheme in a way where if you don't target and if you give extra attention to Jameson, you got Jahmyr Gibbs, who's starting to get a little better every single week. So it is a pick your poison kind of thing with the Lions. So it's just a more talented team. And with Jahmyr Gibbs getting better, and look, Sam Laporta has been quiet the last couple weeks. You can fire him back up. Donovan Peoples-Jones, might take a little bit of time to get in the mix. So I do think the Lions are better than the Packers, and they'll end up winning. I think that the Lions, like again, we've said it on many podcasts, they're hungry for number one. They're hungry to be the number one overall seed, to have as many home games as possible. It may not end up being number one, but number two is not so bad, where you have an opportunity to get a home playoff game. Hopefully it's not against Dallas. I think that would be a real nightmare if you have Dallas, because they know how to play indoors, and they have that mystique of playing. Maybe it is full circle. Maybe you play Dallas and you do get that 41-6 kind of win against a team like the Cowboys who end up choking. But I'm not concerned this week. I think you're 9-2, and you head off into next week, I think, against the Saints in a real advantageous situation. My concern level is like a 3. I think it's a good game for the Lions. The one thing that would be concerning is if you play again like you do against the Bears, sloppy. That's what, in the end, that's what's keeping the Lions from shining, is their sloppiness. So I'm not concerned at all. I think it's going to be a fun opportunity. Again, cross it off the list. Lions haven't won on Thanksgiving since 2016. Cross that shit off the list and let the team celebrate, man. My goodness.
It sure does feel like a season of just kind of correcting wrong,
yes.
Right? Just addressing all of the things that have stood out or haunted you as a Lions fan. But yeah, I think, and I'm expecting this team to bounce back. I think this team is geared up for this. I think they take advantage of Green Bay. They use home field advantage. I think that place is cool. I think Ford Field's going to be rocking, man. Yes. I think it's going to be loud. I think it's going to be one of those games where you are in the stadium and you can feel the noise reverberate off your chest. I would not be surprised if you do not hear it and you do not feel it in the press box. But yeah, I think Jahmyr Gibbs has a big game. I think David Montgomery has a big game. I think J-Mo probably scores another touchdown. Of course, Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to do Amon-Ra St. Brown things. Defensively, I think Aiden Hutchinson gets back on the sack train. I think Aleem McNeil, man, this team is so good when he's on. When he's able to collapse and push that pocket and just wreak havoc in the backfield, this defense looks so good. Him pressuring the quarterback is so important to this team. I think he has a good game. I'm expecting a pick of some sort from one of the guys in the secondary. I think this team rolls, man. I think they win by 11 points. Look, I know it's hard to win games by double digits, but I don't believe in Green Bay. I think they're beat up. I think Detroit is a little bit pissed off about the way that they played last week. I mean, they almost let that one slip away. Yeah, they won, and yeah, they were happy. But I think when they go back and they watch the tape, they see a lot of mistakes, and they look to correct them here on Thanksgiving and send the fans home happy. I think they roll out of Thanksgiving 9-2. And I think they're ready to go.
Absolutely, man. Thankful for all of you for listening. We appreciate the weekly downloads. Those of you that have subscribed with us for the past decade, extremely grateful to be talking to my guy every single week, Adam the Jock Strozinski, one of the best, most hard-nosed individuals you're going to find. Definitely in the know, understands everything going on in the world of Detroit sports. Man, it's been a fun time. Grateful to be covering a winning football team. And I'm grateful for the drama. You guys are so crazy that you would even rehash and revisit Scott Mitchell. And thank you, Scott Mitchell, because of your Facebook rant. You've made my workload so much lighter, the pressure so much less, because the drama that you created has fueled internet websites for the past 48 hours. Thank you so much. All we can do is say thank you. It's been great. We appreciate it. While we don't advocate for drama like that, it's great when it happens, because if you're going to call out Barry Sanders in a public forum and go on Facebook and say that Barry needs to be blamed, thank you. That plays. That works. And thank you to those that want to rehash William Clay Ford. Officially now, the Ford family has owned the Lions for 60 years. So it's been fun to be part of the Lions community podcast and to do everything with Detroit sports. And it's been great that you guys want to peek into a lot of things, to see stuff that we post out there getting big time views, and the fun graphics that we can create. You guys have made the Detroit Sports Podcast Twitter page a very fun platform to go in and have a good time with. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be doing this. Podcasting is going crazy. Everybody's doing them, from the Lions team themselves to athletes that are amazing. One of the funniest ones, if you need one, is the nighttime show with Shannon Sharp and Ocho Cinco. That literally is two brothers hanging out and just clowning around, talking about trying to slide into DMs, talking about popping pills, trying to figure out how to get Shannon Sharp laid and get him settled down. It is worth your time. This platform of podcasting is great. You've made us, Adam and I, part of the community. And thanks everybody that supported us. And for those that put us on your platforms, we greatly appreciate it. Because it's a fun Thanksgiving. Gobble, gobble, motherfucker. We're going to eat up. Don't eat too much. Don't drink too much over the weekend. We need you healthy and strong for a lot of different reasons over the next few months. So I'm proud of you. Let's keep it going, man. It was a fun decade, but we got more to do. And I only want to do it with you. Doc and Jock signing out. Can't wait to do this again next week on the latest episode of Doc and Jock.